Hello, people online. I wanted to have a little random rant because I was just sitting here and thought, and I wanted to share, I've been thinking a lot about, spiritual discernment and, how to know who to put stock in, I guess, when I'm watching something online. Because, I mean, there's no vetting process, there's not even any criteria or certification or rubric, really, that is genuinely agreed upon for spiritual understandings and teachings, right? So, and I watch a lot of cult videos because they're just morbidly fascinating. And yeah, I know there's probably something wrong with me. Cults are so interesting, though, and I think one of the telltale signs that someone you are following, like a spiritual leader that you're following, if they're becoming toxic, at least, not like, I don't even want to use the word cult because that has such like a hot cold definition. Either it is or isn't, people fight about it. But I think if we can look at toxicity as a spectrum of healthy to not at all healthy, and finding it, if it's more towards the unhealthy side, it's more toxic. If it's more towards the healthy side, it's more beneficial and functional. But when spiritual leaders want themselves to be the only source of spiritual knowledge for you, I feel like that's when it gets really, really toxic and culty, and it's a high control group when they want to dominate your spiritual viewpoint, or really dominate any part of your life too. But I think a lot of times the spiritual cults start with that, they dominate your spiritual viewpoint. They have this final and only authority, whereas I feel good spiritual leaders will tell you, well, one, to look inside yourself first for what feels right and true, and being willing to be really honest with yourself and break down those preconceived notions and our pride and our ego and all that, and be vulnerable with ourselves to find truth. But also they will tell you to not just listen to them. A good spiritual leader is gonna not belittle you or put you down or discourage you for looking somewhere else, because if someone is sharing something that they truly believe is true and is not meant to manipulate you, then they're so convinced that it's true that they believe that other people who see it, even if they look elsewhere, they'll know the truth was in them. They don't have anything to prove. They have their faith in what they believe in. And sometimes delusion works in a way where it's not good either, because they fully believe what they're saying, but it's delusional. Spiritual psychosis is real, and it's not laughable. It's very sad. But it can be very harmful to others, not just the person in delusion, especially if this person has power. Letting mental illness go unchecked as a spiritual gift is not good. If you're not functioning in regular life, you're not really being healthy. It doesn't matter who you're talking to, whether they're real or not. Because even if they are real, if they're making you neglect your personal life, you have bags of trash in your house and you don't know how to communicate with people anymore, that's a bad entity then, because you're not gonna have a good, fruitful physical life. It's not gonna amount to much if you can't take care of yourself or others. But yeah, I want to let everyone know, just be wary of any kind of spiritual leader or advice that tells you to only listen to them, because there's never any one right answer, except for maybe that there's never any one right answer. But even still, that's got to be proven false somewhere in some context for it to really be true, because all truth is a paradox. For something to be true, then its opposite must also be true in some context. There must always be an exception, except for when there's not an exception. It's so silly, and it's really hard to take it seriously. The paradoxical, I don't know, nature of life, the paradox-like nature of life. But yeah, just always keep looking for information. The more data you can integrate into your map of reality, even if it's data that continually shows this is not the right path, like me watching those cult videos, I've found something useful for myself. I am now able to be on the lookout for someone who's going to try and tell me that they know the ultimate spiritual truth that I can never learn without them. Especially that, making them think that you need them to improve spiritually. You don't need anyone, honestly. Like, it's great to have community, and we do have like social needs and community needs, but in the end, your spiritual growth will never rely on just one person except for yourself. That is the one person it will always rely on. There's no external person that will be the only thing that brings you to enlightenment. Like, that's not how that works. That's not how true enlightenment works. Anyone who is truly enlightened does know that. And they'll say that, they'll say, don't just listen to me. No one who is really understanding the truth of reality is going to want people to worship them like a god or anything like that, because that's only hurting the other person, which is hurting ourselves. It just doesn't make any sense if you really understand what's going on in reality. We're all part of one life. No part of it is better than the other. It just is all one body. Just like we don't say my eyes are more important than my elbows, even though objectively my eyes do a lot more for me than my elbows. I mean, I guess it's great to have like arms that work. Objectively though, if I had to give up one, I'd give up an elbow before I'd give up an eye. But that does not mean it's better or worth more. I still want all of it. Like, please let me keep all of my body. But that's kind of how it is with life. Sure, maybe humans are capable of a lot of really cool things, but we're not better than like air. We need air to live. We can't be better than it if we need it to live, right? And even amongst people, like, no one human, I don't think, is better than another. Sure, we all have our strengths and our weaknesses and our flaws, but no one human life is more valuable than another. It's just not how it works. We're all part of one humanity. So, yeah, I don't even remember what I was talking about before. I've digressed. I'm not gonna lie, I'm just rambling. This is what it's like when I just sit outside and think. But yeah. Oh yeah, I remember what I was talking about. Remain open. That's the tip of the tongue phenomenon, I just had to stop thinking about it. Always stay open. Don't ever make me anyone's final authority on anything. Even like as a parent, I really encourage being challenged, which I know seems not stereotypical for the parent-child dynamic, and it's not in an unhealthy way or anything. Like, when I know, right, over him, obviously I'm going to enforce that. But if he comes to me with a well thought out statement of like, this doesn't seem fair to me, I'm going to at least consider it, and sometimes he is right, and I love that, because he's thinking in ways that I'm not, and that's beautiful to me. I think a lot of times people in authority positions feel threatened by that rather than excited by the idea of collaborating and both becoming better. It's like, okay, you can be good on your own, or you guys can be great together. And I think that is really the key to any successful human-to-human relationship, is the willingness to collaborate rather than be right. Because there's no shame in being wrong. And I just made another video about this. And that's how this is unlocking in my life too. Like, learning that I'm not wrong when I'm wrong. Like, my identity of who I am is not wrongness and badness and like all this stuff. I'm just like still me, and I still deserve forgiveness and patience and redemption and the ability to grow and be better. Because we all deserve that. And in order to do that, we have to be willing to be humble, of course, and honest with ourselves, which is really, really hard sometimes and embarrassing. But it's okay, because you're supposed to feel that embarrassment. It's what triggers like the desire to change, because you don't really want to feel embarrassed or ashamed. I think a lot of times people can get stuck in that embarrassment and shame, and that's where it becomes really unhealthy and toxic for people. You do have to move past it eventually, but when we repress it, when we feel shame for feeling shame, when we don't allow ourselves to feel it, it builds up and it gets even worse feeling. And we don't move past it ever, because it's still waiting there, waiting to be felt, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger until we break down, or we have some kind of, altering experience where we're just like, we can't take it anymore. And yeah, so to avoid that, feel the shame, but don't let yourself feel shame over feeling shame. It comes from observing the emotion. So say you're feeling really, really bad because you made a mistake and you see how wrong you were and you're feeling so ashamed, and you start feeling like, oh man, I can't believe I feel so bad. Like, why do I feel so bad? And it's like, it'll spiral. I don't know, for me at least. But when I can stop and I'm feeling the shame, when I can step out and observe myself and start thinking, wow, I'm feeling shame right now. Okay, why am I feeling shame? Now, my emotional experience is not the shame, though it's there. And now I get to analyze it and like process it with the other side of my brain. And I think this wholeness and this union of feeling that emotion when it happens and then being able to find the right point to pull myself out and move on to the next step of like, yes, and like, I don't want to change this. I am instead grateful for the shame and like finding a way to learn and grow from it. But I think this process too has to be done really carefully, because you have to be in a really safe place to be able to do this. You can't be in like active, abuse or harm and like go through this, because you'll end up with like Stockholm syndrome type stuff or like culty stuff, like. But after you are out of harm's way, learning to be grateful for like the dilemmas and the mistakes, and not necessarily grateful for the abuse, but grateful for your ability to move through that part in your story and not let it stop you, that you can find better because you didn't let the bad hinder you or immobilize you, but yeah, I noticed in a lot of the cults, like, they like the concept of taking responsibility for your own, like, for yourself can be weaponized against you by really damaging and toxic and manipulative people, where they blame you for their abuse, and like it resonates because there's a hint of truth to that, but they're distorting it. The truth is that you can stand up and you can leave and decide that you don't deserve this, but they are intentionally doing mind games and stuff to trick you into thinking that you just deserve this and like you're manifesting abuse or something, which is not true. And it's gross that people try to even do that, but we do, like, as someone who has gone through very traumatic things, like, I couldn't blame myself. Then I had to go through the phase where I did demonize the other person. That was the part in my journey that allowed me to heal, but it wasn't healthy to stay there forever either. I had to move then on to understanding that, like, we're both human too, in a sense, and I had to humanize myself first before I could humanize someone else that had done me harm, I had to be less hard and less critical on myself, and I don't know. I'm rambling again. I'm not even sure what I'm going to call this video. I don't even remember what I started off talking about. But, thanks for coming on this talking journey with me. I like the idea of being able to share just what's in my heart and mind with people, and maybe someone out there in like another country is going to have the captions on and read it, and they're going to have this little like wink from the universe, and they're going to know that they're on the right path and that there's more, and they're going to keep looking and finding other things that keep winking at them and telling them they're on the right path to like understanding themselves and finding that inner peace and figuring out what's holding them back, and it's always ourselves that's holding us back from the mental blocks, that hold us in like depression. And I don't want this taken out of context. You're not responsible for your depression, but I do think that like we are capable of reframing our minds with support and sometimes interventions of medication. Like we have all these different ways to help ourselves, but we have to choose the concept of wanting help first, and sometimes people choose to want to try to help themselves, and they lack like external factors to really get that help, and that is sad, and that's not their fault, but also too, you can have someone with all the external factors, and if they don't want the help, they will not receive it. It won't do any good for them. You can't force people to do something they really don't want to do. You can manipulate, you can coerce, you can threaten, but at the end of the day, like, a person has to choose that. And it sucks that like external forces can seem to manipulate our internal will, and that there's so many complex systems to make that happen. But I don't know. I just know that finding control to examine both the good and the bad of things and pick a neutral feeling has really saved me in so many ways. And I don't know, I wasn't really going to share this bit, but I guess I will. I've been diagnosed with PTSD in 2020 or 2021, around pandemic times, maybe 2020, I don't know. Anyways, so I've been diagnosed with PTSD, and the more I analyzed like the depths of my dysfunction, I really thought that maybe I had been more of a candidate for a diagnosis of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD. But for the last 6 months, I've been doing phenomenal. I'm functioning at regular human, like, everything again, pretty much. I mean, I have my down days still, but like, it's not. So I had my current therapist retest me for PTSD, like for the diagnostic criteria. We filled out this thing and I answered a bunch of questions, and I no longer qualify for a diagnosis of PTSD, which is really awesome. And I don't know. I'm saying, if I can do this, I feel like anyone can. We've just been asking the wrong questions and looking at things wrong. And, I don't know. I think that's crazy, right? Like, that I was diagnosed with PTSD and now I'm just not. And, like, I'm sure this happens all the time, but that is mind-blowing for me. Like, I don't know. I love that for me, though. And I just hope that the bits and pieces I share of my journey, because some of my videos are as old as like probably 2020, when I had just gotten diagnosed, and I was like, the videos started after I'd begun my journey into healing, a lot of them, but right before that I'd been at my lowest. Like a couple years before, it was just, life was the worst. I was the worst version of myself in a lot of ways. I hated myself so much, hated life. I was really ungrateful for it. I was bitter about it. And I was trying to just survive on spite. But sometimes when that's all you have, it gets really, like, rocky, And it only lasted for so long. I think spite is definitely a survival tool, but at a certain point, or in a certain context, spite can do a lot more harm than good for people. And I think that's the point it had reached with me. And I wasn't doing well. When I got that diagnosis, I wasn't doing well at all. So yeah, I feel really grateful to have come so far. But again, I share my story because I want people to hear it, and I want people to resonate, and I want people to be inspired, but I never ever want to be the sole voice of anyone. And I think anyone asking you to be their sole voice for anything is just not a good authority figure at all. Good authority figures, good leaders, good guides, they know that you have to find it in yourself, that intangible bit that makes you like them. You just have to do it for yourself. No one can do it for you. You can see everyone do it and you can be inspired by them for sure. But at the end of the day, you have to choose it for yourself. Just like you have to choose when to give up. You can always keep choosing to keep fighting. But eventually, whatever factors make you decide, you will have to choose to give up. And so, yeah. Free will is a heck of a thing, right? So, I hope everyone uses their free will to choose like discernment around what other people say and do when you hear it online, because not everyone's going to be honest and truthful, and I know that much is true. A lot of people will just say stuff to say stuff online, you know. And I'm really sick of the crazy to Christian to alt-right pipeline of influencers that I keep seeing, and it's weird and I don't like it. Anyways, let's all choose better and choose discernment and choose to like not be assholes to each other. I don't know. Or choose whatever you want, I guess, at the end of the day, huh? But I'm gonna choose to just like love everyone, because I definitely used to choose to hate for no reason. So like now I'm just gonna choose to love for no reason, because why not? I can. And it sure does make life better. I choose to be grateful for small reasons, and you know. Okay, I'll stop rambling. Bye.